Hey, pro athletes, ready to dominate your finances and secure your future? Choose Oakbridge Wealth Management, led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, your ultimate financial planning partner. We tackle your unique financial challenges with a tailored, comprehensive approach. Join top NFL players and experience the Oakbridge difference. Just ask the Miami Dolphins' Alec Ingold. He says the systems and personal service my family received have been outstanding. Ready to take the next step? Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE. And become the champion of your financial destiny.
Bernstein again. Big opening. Pass 5. Pass 10. Burgos a man. And he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards out the
Welcome back to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by BetOnline.ag. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, how are we doing today?
Oh, man, every day on the podcast is a holiday. We're back in, I guess, sitting at our desks at home, but was very fun to be at Squad Fest and see how bananas the football program, in a good way, is.
Absolutely. And one of the people who generously let us come to Squat Fest, invade their space, is Jerry Mao from the Badger social media team. Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today. We've been dying to talk to you social media guys because, I know that Bernie will echo this, but what you guys have been doing for the last 6 months especially has been kind of transformative for the program. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. So glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. We really appreciate having you here. Before we get into it, want to remind you guys that we are presented by BetOnline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. MLB season is in full swing. We've got tennis, we've got golf, and the football season is just around the corner. Futures, Heisman props, you name it, there at betonline.ag. So head on over to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts. Bernie, I don't know about you, but I think that your teams would have could have done a lot. I mean, we didn't really have social media when we were in school, but could have done a lot with Jerry and the rest of the crew that you guys have there.
Could have done a lot. We were standing literally at Squad Fest watching them take video and pictures, and then 10 seconds later on my app it pops up, and there it is. And I'm liking it immediately. And I think, Jerry, maybe this is something you could touch on, but like, you're a window into the program where when I played 20 years ago at this point, you took pictures in a newspaper and people had to read about it. I know that sounds wild to even say it. A newspaper sounds hard to even say anymore. But Jerry, how cool is it that like you are the window, you're like the gatekeeper to all this information that, listen, we love it, dude. I'm telling you, like everyone I talk to is obsessed with it. Even people who are alumni, we talk to a lot of alumni, like we love it. Dude, how important is that? How cool is that your team is that team?
Yeah, honestly, it's, we don't take it for granted every day, and as someone who went to school here, went through the undergrad program here, was a Badger fan my whole life, growing up in Wisconsin, like it's really special, especially for me. But that's the whole point of our team, right? Like our goal is to be able to show off this team and show them off to the world and be able to, get snippets here and there of what it's like to be part of this team. And what I love about that so much is that, like, you guys can read about all you want about, like, oh, how good this team's gonna be, or about this player, ex-coach, whatever. But to be able to show that visually, right, it's on a whole nother level. I'm super happy that I get to be able to be one of many to be able to help show off this team.
Well, we're here to show you off a little bit today because of the work that you're doing. So we want to get to know you a little bit more first. So
I hate talking about myself, so
Well,
I will talk about everyone else on my team.
Well, guess what? Too bad. You're here to talk about you. That's what we do. We talk about Badgers. You are a Badger, like you said. Grew up a Badger fan. Talk to us about sort of how you got to the University of Wisconsin and your upbringing before we get into some of the social media stuff.
Wait,
Sure.
and Jerry, also, but
Yeah.
but please also, I didn't grow up in this era. I guess I kind of did. Like Facebook came out for college people. You didn't do anything with it.
Right.
While you're giving us your story, can you also like incorporate how you became a professional in this space? Because it is a space that I think I'm cool in, but my wife consistently says I'm a loser in. So I love to know how like people kind of find their way in this kind of wacky world of social media.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, let's start back from the beginning. So I was actually born in China. So I was born in Shanghai. Whole family's from there. My dad came over to Marquette for his grad program, kind of like on a student visa, what they call it. He loved it so much, he basically brought his whole family over, and I lived in the Milwaukee area since I was 6, basically. Grew up in Mequon and Germantown, so pretty close by. And came to school here because I loved the Badgers. I grew up watching them, and back then I actually wasn't going to go into video or any creative stuff. I'm pretty nerdy in terms of like I love computers. Like I built my own computer. So I was really into like computer science. I thought I was going to code for my career. Took one semester that hated it. It was absolutely brutal. It was the driest thing ever. So my roommate back then, he took a class in what was it? It was like Intro to Film or something like that.
Yeah, it's ComArts. It was, at least in my time, that was ComArts 200.
Yeah, 200, 250, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just saw him always running around with a camera, and I was like, you know what? I grew up like messing around with like, mini DV tapes and stuff like that, recording family vacations. That was like the extent of my knowledge with that stuff. So I figured I'd give it a whirl, took that class and fell in love with it. And so my sophomore year, I decided to change my major over to ComArts. And back then I was still like, I loved sports, but I didn't really want to get into the sports film world because back then it was still like, this was 2010. So social media was just starting to really pop off. Like, Twitter really wasn't even a thing. Instagram was barely a thing. Facebook and MySpace were really the only two kind of dominant social media platforms, so to speak. Video really wasn't a thing either, right? It was more just texts and photos. So my kind of career projection was to graduate and go to LA or a big city and work on films. Like I was really into films. I wanted to be on set working on basically Hollywood movies. That was like my end goal. And honestly, like the program here at Wisconsin caters more towards that too. I'm sure it's gotten a lot different over the last decade or so, but when I was in school, it was very rhetoric heavy, very film heavy analysis of film and stuff like that. So my background was more in that. So I went through, a year of that, and then the same roommate, he ended up getting a job on the video board side. So the way our video department set up here is kind of they used to have 3 kind of wings. It used to be the video board wing, which is what you see live in venue, right? On the video board, stuff that is played back to you, captured in venue. So that's one section. Then we have the coaches' films, which, is what you see cameras at every practice, getting all the film for players to watch after practice. And then we have like what we called post-production back in 2010, which more or less is more the creative side, external facing social media stuff. So he got a job in the video board side, filming and cutting stuff for game day stuff. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, I had student section tickets every year, and I was like, oh, you mean you get to go to the game for free and like work it and still watch the game? That sounds like a win-win. So I ended up applying on the post-production side, and got a job there. Started my junior year in college. This was 2012. And then from there, I've been kind of with the department in some sort of way since. I mean, working basically from a student up to where I'm now. So, been around. I'm probably one of the most tenured employees in the video department at this point. So I've seen this department really grow and change along with the social landscape too over the last decade. It's been just insane. If you would have told me, 10 years ago how social media would be right now and how much video influences that, it's wild. So that's kind of my backstory.
Well, first of all,
it's a great backstory.
From one comm arts major to another. Thank you. Shout out Professor Jeff Smith, by the way. I don't know if you had Jeff Smith, but he was.
I didn't.
He was.
I do know him, but yeah.
He was my advisor. He was the best. He's still there. So shout out to Professor Jeff Smith in comm arts. One of the things about working in social media, though, is it is a constant grind. Like it never, ever stops. In fact, it just seems to keep accelerating. How do you avoid burning out in just like having the onus of creating content nonstop?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like it's one thing to be able to want to capture everything and show off everything, right? Like that's just not realistic. Because if we did do that, no one would ever have a break ever, right? Like this team just goes. They're literally back today working out again, and they had a week break off and they're back at the grind. But we have to pick and choose what we want to show and what we think the fans would enjoy, right? It'd be boring to you guys if you literally saw the same workout every single day and the same pictures and the same whatever it is. So to be able to pick and choose when we show off the team, and not only would that give us a mental break, physical and mental break, but also keep things fresh, keep things exciting, right? So, I've told everyone that I work with, like, it's okay to not post. It's okay to take a break. It's okay. Like, the fans don't know what they don't know until we show them, right? Like that's always been a thing. Like we know what we shoot, we know what we capture, but we know what we see from a day to day. But the fans aren't like, oh, I can't believe you didn't show me that. I can't believe you didn't show me X, Y, and Z. Well, like they don't know that unless we show it to them. So like you don't necessarily have to show X, Y, and Z. Just show your best content, your best moments. And honestly, 90% of the time, that's enough. Now it's a little different in season. It's a little different when, all eyeballs are on you. Off season, right? That's when you want to take those breaks. But overall, it's, like, for example, like Threads. Threads is a great example right now. You guys might have heard of it, right? Instagram.
Oh, we're on it. The show is on it. I believe.
There you go. Yeah, Meta's attempt
at. You gotta follow on Threads. We're everywhere. Twitter. You name it.
So that's a good example of like how aggressive do we approach that right now, right? In the off season. Will we do things on it? Yes, but like we don't know what Threads is going to look like. We don't know how the audience is going to be. Is it going to be more Instagram visual heavy? Is it going to be more text-based heavy? Nobody knows. So does it make sense to just post and do whatever? Maybe. But it's also the off season, and our social media manager, she's off for the week, and we're not going to tell her like, hey, get off vacation and start posting, right? Like that's unfair to her. That's unfair to everyone involved. Because I would hate that if I was, in wherever and somebody's like, hey, can you edit this and send it to me? Like, no, I'm on vacation. Like, knock it off. Like, that's not how it works. So like, yes, the off season, we definitely treat it differently. we won't miss the big things like Squash Fest and all those things, but it's a good time to take a break and mentally reset before the season actually picks up.
Go for it, Matty P. This is like your. I know this is your world of the comm. As a history major, we didn't have social media. I don't think we did.
I mean,
still do.
I mean, Bert, like literally, Facebook came out while we were in college, so we've been around for a minute. But one of the things is that we've seen sort of I don't want to say a sea change, but a definite change of aesthetic in the social media content since Coach Fickell has arrived. Talk to us about some of the biggest transitions and the biggest, I guess, like I said, like aesthetic changes that the new staff has tried to drive home, as opposed to what we saw with under Coach Chryst. I mean, you were around. I mean, were you here for Coach Anderson?
I was here for all 4.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so, you've been around.
So I've seen everything. But
let's talk about the change in the last 9 months or so. What has been the biggest sort of what has been the biggest excitement about that, and what's been the hardest part of that transition?
Yeah. So we get this a lot. I mean, everyone, you can see social media comments and everything like, oh my god, like this is so different. Like, oh, the one we always laugh about is like the new social media team is killing it, right? It's like it's the same people. It's the same people. It's the content that's changed, right? So, one thing that I always like to bring up is like I've been fortunate enough to see 4 different staffs and their styles and approach to this, and one of the things I always bring up to whenever somebody asks us about this is it's all about access and relationship. Right. The biggest thing. So, Fick brought over his head creative person from Cincinnati. Her name is Kelsey. She's awesome. The nice thing about that was that we already had that relationship, right? To be able to already have the access and relationship that she has built with Fick over the last 5 years or wherever it was at Cincy, to then mold it with our team and collaborate, it makes everything a lot easier to be able to be like, hey, we want to show off X, Y, and Z in the offseason. We want to show off this next week. If it was a new staff with new players, new coaches, new employees, like that takes time. But with someone who's been there, done that, to be able to have her be like, hey, can you go to coach and see if we can shoot this, right? She's like, oh yeah, no problem. Like that's already 100 steps ahead of where we would be if we were building a new relationship, right? So we were at that point with, the previous staff already, but the previous staff also didn't do as many, one can say, flashy things that maybe the fans want to see. Doesn't mean they didn't do it, right? It's just they did it differently. They still had max days. They still had, all these things. They just didn't brand it as Squat Fest or, had a DJ and lights, right? Like all these things, like most teams do the same things. It's all about presentation, how it's done, right? So the nice thing about this staff is that they understand that these things, not only do you need to do them, but you also need to show them in a way that you also get buy-in from fans, from players, in a way that they're engaged and actively wanting to show it off. So that makes our job easy, because when we can just show up with a camera and start capturing and literally maybe even put out a raw clip, it's already packaged in a way that fans would like it to be in. So all that to say, it's really nice to be able to have that connection already with the staff because they brought someone over with that media team. And it's also really nice to have that relationship built, and we can't wait to show off what it is going to be like in the season, because there's going to be so many new things. I mean, even with camp, right? You've heard like camp, they're going to Platteville. Like we're going to have a whole week with the team just on campus. So it'll be interesting to see like what they plan for the players, because we're gonna be there. We're gonna be there the whole week.
But you're
Watch
the only
cameras,
one with
so.
a camera and a cell phone, right? Like they are not the. I don't think the guys are able to have it. So you really are
Yeah.
the only content, maybe outside of some media people, who will be
Right.
there. But like, dude, you're the only. Literally, for me, I'm freaking out because I'm like, man, who am I going to read? What am I going to watch?
Yeah.
So wait, go. But I think like it feels like your access. I don't know what your access was prior. I'm just talking about right now. Seems like you can be anywhere that's appropriate, right? Maybe not
Yeah.
the training room,
Yeah.
maybe not the locker room at some points, but like your access is. It seems like people are getting out of your way. You're getting the best content, and it also seems like the guys, the athletes enjoy it and they want to be part of it. So 20 years ago, I couldn't say I would want someone to come into the locker room and
Right.
come into the weight room and start taking pictures of me. I think it'd be cool, but at that point, I was a knucklehead. What's it like now? The mental of the guys,
Yeah.
because they want to be on the social media.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume.
Oh yeah. That's a great question. I mean, that's a great point too, because even 4 years ago, the players that I filmed, I took photographs, videos of, they didn't care about it. They didn't care about it. They just didn't, right? And that could be you could probably partially attribute that to the head guy to a certain extent, right? Like whatever the head guy, their approach is to how they want to be portrayed, it probably rubs off a little bit on the rest of the staff, the rest of the players. It probably, there's some sort of correlation there. These players, I mean, we just did a video board shoot, right, for like the intro videos and all that stuff. Some of these new freshmen, like, we don't have to tell them what poses to do. They just start going. Like it's crazy, because we're like, we have our checklist of like, all right, like now flex, now turn around and put on your name and all these things. Like they start doing 50 different poses just on their own. And that's really the state of how it is with young players now. It's that they grew up in this social media world. All the official visits they've been to, they're so used to having a camera in their face that it's almost weird not to have a camera in their face. So in the locker room, right, in the weight room, they see us around, they start posing. It's like instant. We don't have to tell them to. They just know to do it, right? So,
That's so cool.
they cheese it up a little bit, right? They cheese it up a
Sure.
little bit for the cameras and stuff like that, which, there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, it's a completely different mindset for these players now, and makes our
Jerry, I
job
have
way
to-
easier, right? Like,
Wait, I have to, man, hold on, give me 1 second. The coolest thing to happen in my time was the new scoreboard that could. So you know how we would take pictures and your picture would go up on the board that was static, and you'd just be like mean mugged, like. So then it changed to where they would film you for 5 seconds when they, if you ran the football, it'd say, "Oh, Matt Bernstein on the run," and then you'd be like this, kind of moving around, maybe throwing a football up in the air like for 2 seconds. That was the coolest thing you could do 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
now it's what you're saying is it kind of does resonate. Like it is weird if you don't have a camera in your face for a young athlete.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And they know like they're in the spotlight. Do you guys have meetings that talk about like, we want to highlight these guys this week? Or you don't have to say this, but with the NIL, do guys come up to you and be like, I want you to highlight me this week?
Yeah, NIL is tricky, right? Because we technically can't provide anything that is sponsored that they make money off of, right? From
Right.
a athletic versus NIL standpoint, it's a pretty even divide. Like we can't. do that.
There's a very
Right.
clear divide in
Yeah.
what the media department can and cannot do and
Right.
provide, and those lines
Right.
are very clear.
Yeah.
Right, but if
So
you pump a
what we-
guy up,
Yep. So it's a very touchy subject, because we have 110, 120 players, right?
Mhm.
In their own eyes, they might think they're the guy, right? Which we all know that's not the case. We have the starters and we have a few of the backups that probably are impact players. And outside of the starters, there's probably 2 to 3 that are like the guys. So outside of, the Braylon Allens of the world, there's a pretty big fall off, right? So we have to find a balance between showing off new guys who think they deserve more time, and guys who are the guys. And it doesn't mean that we don't want to show off everyone. That's not the point, right? We do want to show off. We do want to, even if you don't play, like, you're still a player on the team and you probably still have your own story, and we want to be able to showcase your personality and who you are. But let's be realistic. It's not going to be this. You're not going to get the same spotlight time as the starters. That's just not ever going to happen. But we make a conscious decision of who we want to post and how many times this person gets posted, and have we shown off the freshmen as much as we can or need to, and all these little things. And it's a lot of times people just think, well, you just show up with the camera, you shoot, and you post whatever you get. Which, sure, sometimes it is easy like that. But a lot of other times, especially in season, it's, do we want to highlight this play, or do we want to highlight this guy who doesn't really make plays but made a good play, but maybe not as flashy as the sack, right? Like, we talk through all those things typically in the beginning of the week, kind of lay out the plan for how we want to approach. Typically, we have the whole calendar planned for the week by Monday at noon, right? We have all our footage. We know who we want to highlight. We're even making notes during the game, like, oh, that's a play that we'll probably want to show off, or that's a great shot of this player that maybe doesn't get that much shine, but it's a cool shot, right? So we talk through all of that, kind of game plan it and put it on a calendar and see what it looks like and go from there. But yeah, definitely thought into who we show and how we show it.
Attention athletes. Are you ready to take control of your financial future and score big off the field? Oakbridge Wealth Management, led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, is your all-star team of financial experts, specifically catering to professional athletes like you. We tackle your unique financial challenges head-on, so you can focus on what you do best. Our comprehensive and adaptive approach sets us apart. Starting with our strategic partners, we create a seamless, frictionless experience tailored to your financial journey. Our services evolve alongside your career, from cash flow management and major purchases to estate planning and long-term investments. Don't wait until the fourth quarter. Secure your financial legacy now and reap the benefits of our expertise through your career and beyond. With Oakbridge, you'll gain peace of mind, financial freedom, and a solid game plan for the future. Top NFL players like Chase Roulier, Alec Ingold, Tyler Biotish, and more have already joined our winning team, and now it's your turn. Here's what former Badgers All-American and Dallas Cowboys center Tyler Biotish has to say. From the beginning, Chris guided me in setting financial goals and provided me with the necessary tools. He's been a constant support, like a brother, throughout my life. His guidance played a crucial role in my NFL journey. It's time to elevate your financial game plan. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE. And join the winning team. Well, I imagine one of the toughest things that you encounter during the season is what to post after a loss. And how do you navigate the what you have to do on social media after loss, especially a tough one? You lose to Minnesota, right? Something like that happens. How do you navigate that on the social media side?
So last season was probably the season I learned the most out of the last 8 or 9 years I've worked here. Now my role has changed over the past few years, so I'm doing more of the bigger picture social stuff. But man, to be able to have a season like that, you learn so much more, because it's easy to make content when you win. It's so easy. It's you close your eyes and everything gets the most views. Everything gets all the clicks.
First
right?
win, like when Jimmy Leonard's gets that first win, when he comes in the locker room, that is I think that is the easiest piece of social media content you probably got all season. Ever,
right? You just gotta be in position. You gotta plan to be. All right, we know this is the locker room setup, right? That's a great. I'll kind of deep dive into that a little bit. We knew if he was going to win that we were going to have my camera by this post because he stands here. I'm going to have the wide angle lens. You're going to get reactions of the players with a different camera from here so that you're not in my shot, and then we're gonna follow him off with this third camera. So like we plan all that, knowing if we win, this is the thing we want to post, right? But then the actual content itself, it's money, right? Like it's so easy. You just got to prepare to be in position to get that moment, right? A lot of that is being able to just, this is coming. How do we capture it? And now going back to the to losing, right? Like it's hard to lose and make good content. It just is. You get crapped down by fans. You get, everyone has their opinion, which rightly so. It's social media. But we learned a lot last season having such an up and down season. Part of it is, what the higher ups, what messaging they want to put out, right? Versus what the team, there's a balance between what we want the players' voices to be heard and also the athletic side. And we ride that line back and forth all the time because we can't just put out stuff the players always want. And we can't just put out stuff that the athletic department always wanted. So kind of have to find a balance with that. And when we have a losing season, it gets amplified because that becomes a lot of times two very different wants and needs, right? Players still want to show off themselves because then it becomes a lot more, well, I still did well, even if the team didn't, which rightfully so. Yeah, you played well. We should still show you off. But then on the other side, maybe the athletic department might not want to post as much because they don't want the negative engagement. So it's definitely finding a balance between those two. And yeah, we learned so much from last season, which honestly, like, it was kind of cool is the wrong word, but like it was really neat to learn that and to be able to have that experience, because it's only going to make our department and everyone on our team better because you've gone through something like that. And which I guess you could say the same for a team too, right? With players, right? It's got to have the ups and downs to be able to learn from it and stuff like that. So yeah.
Wait, so Jerry, you touched on something, the negative social. How do you deal with that? Like you put a post out. How do you deal with, I'm sure you have a majority of people who will love it, but how do you deal with, like, I mean, I guess, it's more of like, how do the players deal with it? But how do you deal with it as someone who's putting this content out?
Yeah, we have burner accounts.
No, I was just going to jump on top of that specific example. I mean, we were just there at Squad Fest. It was hysterical for me to see all of the, let's face it, Gopher fans and Iowa fans being like, this is so stupid, blah, 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 blah. Exactly. Just like Bert, like, how do you deal with that? Because I would take it so personally. I'm not the person.
Listen, you can't take anything that a Gopher fan or an Iowa person says, and there's a lot of burner accounts out there, right? Like, I didn't know this until just recently, but yeah. So Jerry, how do you deal with that type of crap?
Yeah, honestly, I've gotten to a point in my career where I don't give a crap anymore, right? Like when I was in my 20s, every negative comment, it would just like right in the chest. Just, I can't believe this video is made like this or whatever. I can't believe they used this shot, or why would you, like, every comment like that was just like, oh man, that was me, crap, right? Now, like, who cares? You're never going to see that person. They're just another troll on the internet. Like, you just keep doing you. As long as you know that you make good content and that you're improving every day, that's really all that matters, right? So we joke around with that stuff all the time now. We send it to each other and be like, oh man, I can't believe you posted this, like just trolling each other. But it's all good fun. You can't really take it, like, at the end of the day, like, our job is social media, right? Like, we're here to have fun. We're here to show off the team, have fun, and it's the most non-serious work ever. Like, my wife is a therapist and she comes home and it's just like, oh my God, my day was so long. And I'm just like, yeah, mine too. I had to edit a video. You know, like our job is so unserious compared to the rest of the world that like I need to like realize that and put in perspective that like who cares if some random troll talk about your video like
From Minnesota,
cares?
like we don't
Yeah,
care.
like-
We don't care. But Jerry, listen. First of all, I love it. I don't. I love that your job is your passion, because as an outsider now, what the content you're putting out for me and the alumni base and the potential alumni base. I mean, you're really, people are seeing it. Millions probably of people are seeing it. And what I think is really special is the work you guys are maybe doing, but maybe not doing, but are definitely having an impact on is recruiting. Because people can talk all the crap they want about Squad Fest, and then immediately the week after we signed two of like the biggest names we've signed. So like maybe it has a correlation, maybe it doesn't. But Jerry, what is your thought on that? Because I think it definitely does.
Yeah, for sure. The recruiting is a whole nother beast that has just gone so over the top in the last 4 or 5 years. Like between the shoots these players get, the photos, the videos, like you name it, it's insane. And so Kelsey has done a really good job, especially on the recruiting side, because she has that relationship with the coaches, right? So she has done a lot more of the recruiting day-to-day stuff, and we have a graphics designer named Ryan. He does fantastic work with all the graphics that gets sent out to recruits, along with most of the graphics that you see on social. I mean, he's just a grinder. He makes so much content. And then we actually have a new person that just started today. She's replacing someone that was focused just on recruiting video. Like we have literally a person just focused on recruiting video. That's how absurd that this has gotten. But you need it. You to be able to keep up with the rest of the world and the rest of D1 and the big guys. Like you gotta have someone like that, right? So they've done a fantastic job of creating content constantly for recruits to send out to them. Like whether it's like just a short video that says like I'm coming to OVs, or like a recap video of them being at OVs, or even unofficials. They're getting stuff for unofficial now. So like it's insane. Luckily, I don't do as much recruiting stuff, but I did do a decent amount last year for the previous staff, and I mean it was absurd. It was so much, especially because if you think about it, like you have the season, then you think you have a break, but you don't, because it's always recruiting season. So it just never ends. So like recruiting is a whole nother beast, and they're amazing at what they do. So
yeah, it's incredible, just the amount of content that you have to do, even for guys who aren't even committed, right? Are just visiting. You know, it's one of their like 1,000 unofficial visits they're taking. It's ridiculous. But I want to go back for a second though to something you mentioned. I know we don't have you for too much longer, but you mentioned like keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with the other programs. What is one other program that you, or a creative department that you admire? I have long extolled the virtues of LSU's department. I think that they do a lot of really interesting stuff, not just with football, but with their gymnastics team, with their baseball team, with all this other stuff. Are there any other programs that you think, or you say, hey, like, I think that is really cool, even if it's like a rival school?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Clemson has been kind of the center of the universe in terms of creative media and stuff like that. They really figured it out on the turn, probably in 2015, 2016, when they dedicated so much resource to making their creative department what it is today. But I think right now, one of my favorites is South Carolina. They have a fantastic team there. I know someone on that team. He actually worked for the Big Ten. He worked for Michigan State. His name is Richard. He's amazing at what he does. Their whole team is incredible. But
that's shown off in their recruiting, because they have been recruiting as well as anyone in the country.
Yeah. And what's unique about South Carolina is, and this is what I think, what I strive to do for my work too, is it's cool to make the flashy videos and the cool edits and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about storytelling. That's really what we're all here to do, right? We're all here to tell the story of the team, the players, the coaches, the program. To be able to do that well and have the support of the entire department, that's how South Carolina has gotten so good. If you go through and watch some of their video content, their longer form stuff, even their shorter form stuff, most of the stuff they don't post as much as you think they do, but when they do post, it's impactful. And I really hope that social media becomes more that than just post to post, right? That also goes back to I don't like to post just to post. Just because you have the content doesn't mean you should post it. What does the content do for the fans, for the players, for the recruits? It's got to tell a story. You're always telling a story, whether visually, whether with a photograph, with text, with article. Everything is about telling a story. So my goal, as I'm working with this new staff too, is how can we tell the story of this new team? And, how can we create content that's more impactful and that lasts longer than just that weekend or that day? And we've made some great content over the last 6-7 years that has hit that from bigger picture standpoint, right? Like the JJ Watt We Are Badgers piece that I helped create. Those things I think are what I want to focus on, and I think those are the most impactful things. And because they can be used everywhere, right? They speak to recruits, they speak to fans, they speak to players, they speak to everyone. So yeah.
Listen, when they did that Full House video last year, to me, that is comedy is so hard around football, especially. But that Full House knockoff video that they did last year was one of the funniest things that I've seen in a while. So that I think that is something that is very admirable, and that's definitely a program that is interesting to follow. So I'm going to get you out of here on a couple really rapid fire questions. What is the most annoying question you get asked by players?
By players?
Yeah.
Hey, can we get verified? I mean, it could be. I swear to God, we hear that every other minute, and at this point, it's just you have the money, pay $15 a month to get a check mark on Instagram. Don't bother us. We have bigger fish to fry. We don't care if you have a check mark or not. But it's also funny. We tell them exactly what they need to do to get verified, right? Find recent articles that talk about you and send it to us, and we'll put you through. And it doesn't click sometimes, which it's okay. It's okay.
What is one piece of advice you would give to people who want to get into the social media or creative space?
Yeah. I would say, it's always funny when people are you need X, Y, and Z degree to do things like this. Especially nowadays, social media, you don't need that. It's good to have, and I'm sure your undergrad experiences will help. But at the end of the day, it's all about creating. It's just create. The more you create, the better you're going to get at it. Learn, watch everything, just do it. You just got to do it. It's one thing to talk about it and say you want to do it. It's another thing to just buy a camera, go shoot, bother people in the industry and learn from everyone. I swear, some of the most talented people that I've met in this industry, they never went to school for this. They didn't. They were marketers. They were finance people. They were people that never even thought about picking up a camera. But they self-taught. They reached out to people. They learned from YouTube. YouTube University is the best resource for everything. You just got to create.
What is the question that you are most asked by coaches?
By coaches. Well, I don't deal too much with coaches, luckily, because they can be a handful sometimes. But for me, honestly, my office is literally just down the hallway from a lot of the meeting rooms. So coaches always come to me, hey, can you open the door? Or hey, the projector's not working. The projector isn't working, so yeah, let me go and fix that for you.
You have to be like, I'm not IT. Like, what is that?
So that's probably the most question we get.
Oh, okay. And then finally, what player on the team has the best Instagram account?
Best Instagram account. Oh, I have this little rule where I don't follow players unless they follow me, because I don't want to get into the like follow every single person and then my whole feed is just players. But if I've built a relationship with them and I actually want to see their content, I will give them a follow. I would say, I don't know who has the best, but I will say that someone who's been trying a lot more to get his platform more engagement and like actually giving a good effort. Muma has been actively posting more. He's been asking politely for more content, which we always like. Always come politely. Please ask politely. Please say please. Like, it's not that hard. But yeah, he's been doing well. He's been actively thinking about how he can promote his own brand more on social media platforms, and that's always cool to see. So yeah, probably say Mumo.
Shout out to DJ Mooms.
Yeah, DJ Mooms. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
He wanted me to go out that Saturday night when he was DJing. I was like, Muma, do you know how old I am? He was like, I don't know, like 26, 27. I was like, nah, bro, I'm 32. I'm in bed by 10 p.m. Your set list doesn't start till midnight.
Yeah, I Bernie, I don't know. I'm a little old to be going to the KK at midnight these days, but maybe once, maybe one night when we're back this fall, Bernie, homecoming from my 15th reunion.
There you go.
Maybe I'll make it out one night. We will see. Jerry, no matter what, though, we're definitely going to be in touch with you, seeing you and seeing a lot of your work. We can't thank you enough for joining us today. Your story is fascinating, and we love the content. We just love the content. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah, please share with the team, because I'm on a bunch of X guys. They love it. We talk about them. So what you guys are doing is important. It keeps us all engaged. And I feel like that's what social media is all for, is to keep us feeling like we're part of the team. So thank you.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for tuning into the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag and Oak Ridge Wealth Management. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.